back. We took a little hiatus, but we are here today, and I'm grateful to be here with my co-host, my mentor, Mr. Dennis Porter, author of BU. And today we just want to have a conversation. I'm privy to a lot of these conversations day to day, and I said to Mr. Porter that we need to share this with the world. And today we're going to let the world in on our daily conversations. So, Mr. Porter, welcome.
Thank you. Privileged to be here. First time on the show, but I'm looking forward to it. Just waiting to talk to you about some of the things that we've been talking about all the time, every day.
Yes, yeah. One of the things that, before we actually get into it, I want to briefly give a quick summary of how we met. And as each time I explain it, I always say it was divine intervention. Mr. Porter has started Prodigal Sons and Daughters over 30 years ago? 37 years ago. And at a time like this, when I started Regeneration One, I needed some guidance. And someone introduced us, and we've been inseparable since. He quickly became one of my mentors, someone that I can, ask questions and get good, godly, sound advice from. And it's just not from a spiritual aspect, it's everything. And that's some of the things that he has in his book right here, Be You. It covers a holistic approach of just being a good human being, whether it's finances, physicality, just having good moral standards. All of that's in this book. So I really strongly suggest that you pick up this book. So man, we've been vibing ever since, and there's daily conversations, there's daily withdrawals from him, and he's pouring into me. He often jokes that he's a reciprocal of some of my wisdom, but I'm grateful just to be in close proximity to him. So today we just want to just let y'all into these 1 hour and a half conversations that we have. So Be You. Today we just wanted to talk about identity.
Right, yeah. Well, just a little bit about Be You itself. The title itself, when you think of the modern term or the modern title I gave it, Be You, it's Know Thyself. That's what it's basically saying. Now, this is not something new. This is something that, as far back as man's been able to record the written language, he has always expressed the need over everything else to know thyself. Mm-hmm. And so that's Be You is just a modern spin on knowing yourself, being yourself. The first thing that, as you mentioned, that is the start of the book, is about identity. It's about what is identity, and once you know what identity is, it's questioning yourself as to whether or not you truly are living up to the identity of who the Creator actually gave you the capacity to be.
Mm. Yeah. So not the identity that your parents gave you, not the identity that your environment gave you, the identity that the Creator has given you.
Yes. That is the first and foremost. That's probably the bulk of what the book is telling you, is that there is the environment that man creates in our present world, and there is the natural environment that God placed us in the beginning. How much different have we evolved, and how much have we gone off course from the original identity, being in sync with nature? How far off are we from that?
So one of the paragraphs in the book, and we also talk about it somewhere in our conversations every day, is consciousness or self-consciousness.
Right.
Can you give us a little bit of that on how that ties into finding your identity?
Well, self-consciousness, we know, is not the subconscious. right? Self-consciousness is to be self-aware. It is to be actually aware of yourself. Now, what does that mean? You think that most people would be aware of themselves. As Uncle Yaya would put it, you think that all a person would have to do is look in a mirror or touch their face or body to know that they know themselves. Well, there's a lot more to it in knowing thyself than simply being able to identify yourself in a mirror. It goes much deeper in terms of knowing yourself when you look at it from the basis of not just a name you were given by your parents, not just an identification or a pattern that you've now picked up and your family come to identify you by that pattern, but in nature itself. Is there more to you? Are you more complex? Is there something that time or circumstances or conditions or location changes about who you are, that the root of who you are, your very DNA, your biological makeup, can be shifted, it can be manipulated, and you can live your entire life in an identity or under a label that you call your identity, but you can never maximize actually all of your potential.
So yeah, I like that. I love that. So case in point is when you first come into recovery in the AA and NA, they tell you to raise your hand and say, I'm a recovering addict. And for years, I would follow that teaching. But once again, when you become self-conscious, you understand that those were just some practices,
Right.
some negative practices that I was doing. That's not who I am.
Right.
So although the system may say, hey, you are an ex-felon because you've been arrested, that's not who I am.
Right.
Those are just a result of the choices that I made.
Yep.
And so this is what you're alluding to, that, whether, you grew up in an urban environment, you don't have to think with a poverty mindset.
Nope.
Because your mother and your parents had tendencies or alcoholic behaviors, you don't have to have those same behaviors, right? And we sort of use that as a crutch,
Yeah.
so we can, I would say, fail to a certain extent. We kind of gave an excuse or a justification for our behaviors.
Yeah, and there's some people that are just stuck.
Yeah.
The effects on a young person who has been traumatized, for instance, that trauma is very real. It's not something that they could explain. It was outside of the norm of common thinking, common experience.
Yeah.
So this person has to try to decipher what they are experiencing at that moment. Now, immediately tied to that incident is some emotion that it created from that situation. The emotion helps the individual to store it in the subconscious. Now it becomes a stored memory. Now you have this memory of when you were little and something traumatic happened to you, so that every time now you confront anything that reminds you of that situation. Now that situation could have been abandonment, it could have been abuse, could have been a number of things. Okay, that abandonment side will make it so that you will feel that abandonment a lot of times before the opportunity to abandon you will even come.
Come on now.
So you'll have good people who will actually appreciate you, but because you're not used to being appreciated, you fear that they're going to bail on you at some point, because that's what people always do. And it's not true, but in your mind, the pain of going through something like that is not something you want.
Sure. All I can just think about is ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, right? And how that comes into our adulthood. And we're just replaying things that happened to us in our past that left a stain or a disdain of certain situations, and we bring them to the present and actually bring those to the current, even relationships. And I remember early on, before me and Nicole was married, I was one who would fight, flight, or freeze. right? When it came to disagreements or arguments.
Right.
And one of the first things that I would do was run to my mother's house, right? We had an argument, and I did not have uh, uh, the capability for conflict resolution. So what I did from a past relationship, I was bringing that to the current relationship. So when we had an argument, my thing was, well, I got to leave. And I remember one day she says, "Why are you running?" Because I don't, and my response was, "I don't know, this is what I do. We're not getting along, so I have to leave."
Right.
And she says, "You don't have to leave." So these are these experiences, and once again, we're tying this into the identity, because these events that happen start to shape on how we respond to things.
Right. And of course, we don't want to lose sight of identity on the level of biologically, culturally, ethnically. We have an identity as well, right, as black people. And we're not leaving that out, so we can come to that at a later moment. But in line with what you're saying, until a person acquires certain knowledge of how civilization operates, how people coexist in peace, what we call civilization. Until a person gets that, they can actually operate in a civilization and not be civilized. And they can operate in a civilization and only be partly civilized. So they might get away in their home with acting quite uncivilized. And this unfortunately is a reality in every society on some level, unless it actually is what we call a theocratic government.
Yes, sir.
Nation under God. But outside of that, this is to be expected. And it's pretty natural for most of us to experience these things, particularly if you've been through a lot of what we've gone through. Yeah. Right? So I would say when it comes to finally talking about identity, the key thing about one's identity is knowledge of self, is determining in this world where you could be the greatest value.
Nice. So let me ask this question, and it's one that deserves a response, because we as a black community deal with a lot of absentee fathers, right? And I believe that mothers have their role in nurture, but identity comes from the man. And when that man isn't present, we're looking for something to identify with. And most of the time is those who are in front of us. We look at those who may drive a nice car or dress a certain way, or have a lot of females, and so and the list goes on and on, because that's what's in front of us. So we latch on to that. But how could a young boy, come up to manhood and not have his father present, find out his true identity?
First of all, the definition, the masculine definition of identity is uniquely that which a young man must get from a man. However, his identity is consistent of several different things, some of which he can and does get from women. It could be kindness, could be
Absolutely.
hospitality, could be whatever. But the way that a young man is able to still, in spite of not having a male example in his midst, as he's coming up, how did he then acquire manhood? Well, the scripture also records that there have been several women in the scriptures that actually raised prophets, right? So it's less of who, and it's more of knowing what.
Okay. Okay.
So if you teach a young man, even if you're a woman, if you teach him what a man is, what a man does, you see what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, now that does not substitute for what you're talking about, which is the practical side of executing manliness or masculinity, right? That you do need a man
Yeah.
for. You need to be looking at some men to find out how would I do this? Or how am I supposed to respond in this case? Because we know there's plenty of examples of men that do it the wrong way,
Yeah.
right? So he could have men around him, is what you're saying, but not necessarily any men around him that he can really learn from and grow from. Now, that is the hard job on the backs of you and I, of course.
Yes.
Because as we have been talking about, and we want the audience to notice, that we recognize that the message itself is not so much about having an individual man in the front of you all the time, as it is that the message is like the scriptures speak about fishing. If we give you the method, now you know how to fish. Right. So we may not be able to get to every black male and mentor him in the direct sense, or as we say in the treatment world, individual counseling. Yes. Mm-hmm. But as far as group counseling goes, that's how we're thinking, right?
Yeah, 100%. And you know, it was a rhetorical question because I have the answer, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. And the answer is mentorship. And mentorship don't have to be in close proximity. Mentorship can be someone that you choose that can help you get to where you want to be at.
Right.
That shows and displays responsibility, mm-hmm. that displays wholesomeness, mm-hmm. Spiritualism. Like mm-hmm. this is how I've been able to develop mm-hmm. In such a manner. Before you came, there was other men who poured into me, but now I seek this, and that's one of the things we need to sought after men who are worthy to be followed or worthy to pour into us, and like I said, that comes in many different facets, and with social media today, we can learn so much. You know, we can learn good and bad on social media. Yeah, it's what you choose to do with it.
You know, and in talking about identity, one of the most important facets of identity, in addition to culture and history and all of that, is spirituality. Mm-hmm. Now, the reason why this is particularly so important with us as black people is black people can hardly express themselves in any kind of way without demonstrating they are spiritually based people.
Come on.
Everything they seem to do really has a spirit about it that is distinct. Everybody knows that's black,
yes,
right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now, when we talk about spirituality, it has been lost in that people have sort of cornered it for themselves and identified what they brand as spirituality, right? And the biggest thing that's missing about spirituality is when you ask yourself, what is spirituality supposed to really represent? It's supposed to represent the highest morals, the highest values, the highest God-like character, right? The highest demonstration of charity, things of these nature. Wow, that sounds a lot like religion.
Yeah.
Okay. What people say the difference is that sometimes religions confines you to a certain set of rules and laws and practices that you have to go through that becomes sort of ritual, right? Now, ritual is good if it's good. If it works, if it has a positive effect, ritual is wonderful. Yeah. But ritual is not good when it just becomes routine, when it just becomes something that people do because now they believe that if they don't do it, they're somehow, disobeying God or something like that, or falling out and so forth. So the spiritual part is really the individual's own personal ability that God gave them to express their highest self, whatever that is. That's what we're hearing. When we hear a song that grabs people in a very positive way, we cannot separate that from the Creator's intention. He created the whole concept of spirituality, the whole concept of goodness, of happiness, of joy, of all these things, right? So now, if I express it in a song and it has that effect, then at that point, I'm representing the Spirit of God, right?
Right.
Spirituality, we limit ourselves and we allow things to limit us from being able to fully reap the benefits of all that we could simply by us making determinations based on whether or not a person gets a righteous result the way that we think they should get it, or they got that result through some other means that they identified as coming through God. But Jesus clearly says it, and you hear me repeat it from time to time, everything good is from God.
That's right.
And he didn't say, no, it's got to come from here over there. So I just want to make that about spirituality, because a lot of times, even some of our people think that you have to go back 400 or 500 years ago to Africa, the dances we did, the clothes we wore, and all those things for you to actually be able to tap the spiritual side of who we are. The spiritual side was put to sleep in us. Our mental consciousness of who we were, that was put to sleep in us. But it's not dead.
No, it's still there.
It's
Absolutely.
not dead. So the same truth that had us producing the world that we wanted before they came and kidnapped us, right? Yep. The same truth. It's the same truth that if you heard it now, it will have the same spiritual effect on you that it did then.
So we just need an awakening.
Yep.
That's what we need.
You just need to be put on time again.
That's it.
Aligned again.
And you know, each day I'm sending out the checks, and I start off with "Good morning, child of God." That's intentional, because as you're reading it, that's your true identity. Mm-hmm. You are a child of the King. Yep. So anything, any other labels that were put on you, you can take them off, because if He's in us, if the supreme, the higher being, the highest being is in us, and if I'm a child of Him, children represent the Father. Mm-hmm. So you can't put addict on that. Mm-hmm. You can't put poverty on that. You can't put low self-esteem on that. You can't put all of these negative titles or labels on you, because you are a child of God. So, and I'm really, and I just want to add on to spirituality, because since and just recently, we talk about awakening consciousness and knowledge of self. Man, I've realized that I can take something good, because God is in everything, and I mean everything, right? He is the creator. So when I hear something good from a different belief and it's aligned with Him, I take it. Mm-hmm. It don't have to be what the denomination told me this is what we should read. Mm-hmm. Right? You have to study for thy own self. Mm-hmm. See, and this is where we talk about consciousness at, because religion will have you checking the boxes. Yeah. And long as you check the box, you going to heaven. Yeah. But checking the boxes is a facade, and that's what the Pharisees did. Mm-hmm. They checked the boxes. They remembered the Torah. They did 100 and 200 rules, right? And they persecuted the one and said, "Hold on, let's kill him before the sun set." Yep. So even they was doing evil, They said I'm going to at least keep the Sabbath.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So we got to be careful, and we have to study, man. We got to pick up that book and get aligned with the divine, and that is a saying that I've taken from you, but it is a tagline that I wake up every morning to make sure I'm aligned with him. So once again, we talking about identity. That's your identity right there. You a child of the King. So yeah,
That's right. And you heard me mention this too as well. Matthew 18. The disciples asking Jesus about who was the greatest in the kingdom, and he telling them, at least you humble yourself as a child, you cannot enter the kingdom. Mm-hmm. Now, why would you use a child and say, unless you can humble yourself as this child? And why is he telling them that? Spirituality. It means that you don't claim anything. You never get so big-headed that you know everything. It means that you stay open to learn all your life. And he's telling them that you can't ever lose that. You can't ever get to a point in your life where you know everything. You always got to be humble enough to listen, because the scriptures even tells you that out of the mouths of babes will come the truth, right?
That's right.
So now children, and we know from experience, if you've been around children, they are the most genuine, honest individuals. You may hear something you didn't want to hear.
Oh yeah.
But they're honest. So he's saying you have to have that way about yourself for you to continue to grow.
Yeah. So
5 minutes.
Yeah. So let's I wanted to read something from the book Be You. You can purchase this book at
Amazon.
Okay.
Amazon.com.
All right. Identity. Each day, our personal value is brought into question by the challenges of the world around us. It affects our self-esteem, worthiness, ability to pursue our dreams, confidence, high standards, and self-sufficiency. Your identity is compiled of the past, hereditary and culture, the present, health, education, relationships, and financial status, the future, actions as they relate to the above 2 points. Could you just as we wrap up, could you just give us a little bit of what the thought was there when you wrote that?
Yeah. That you have to be complete as you go forth. You have to look at your past. Where did I come from? Who are the people I came from? Learn as much about where you came from. Don't let anybody tell you that history is not worth exploring. 2, as a result of who you are, know that you are the genetic composition, the accumulation of all those people before you who made up who you are, who suffered for you to be who you are and everything. So out of all of that suffering, what is the beauty of who you are? What is it that you have to offer to the world that came out of that? So that's the present. That's the present person. Assess yourself and figure out what you are, what's the best of who you are, and take that and build on that. That's the future part. That's the accumulation of the past and the present, and that's what it meant by the third part, which is the future. It is the accumulation of those two.
Awesome. Thank you, sir, for the clarification. All right. Listen, man, we can go on, but we're being signaled. So this is just part 1 of many more that we will have in the future. So I wanted to give you an opportunity where people can find you if they want to hire you for consulting, teaching, just being a coach. And please tell us about BBB before we go.
Right, Building Black Boys. Very quickly, Building Black Boys has everything to do with the fact that African American boys, as we call them, are the only and girls are the only generations or the only ones that come up in our society who don't have their original identity. They come up in a subculture really that was forced on them. So everything that they've taken and done with the culture, they have succeeded in making America one of the greatest countries in the world. But at the same time, nobody has ever come back to us with those stolen or lost keys that we needed that every other culture who comes here with. They come here, they can speak their language, they have traditions they practice. This gives them an advantage just walking into the country. So building black boys is all about you got to take the black male first, and you got to change the way he thinks about himself, about his women, about his economic situation, his social condition, and train him from the cradle to begin to build his own economic future, build his own sense of knowledge of self and education, his history, and all those things. That's what that's about. Um, Frederick Douglass put it best, and I'll conclude with this. It is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. And we spent 37 years working with broken men and women, and we understood that it would probably be easier if we start from the beginning and grab them while they're children and begin to work on them at that point. Um, for the consultation services, for project development, for any kind of advisement at all in the areas that I'm familiar with when it comes to building organizations and starting businesses and things of that nature, I can be reached at, I won't give them regeneration for this. I'll give them Dennis Porter 54 at gmail.com. That's all lowercase. And I can be reached at 862-252-1096.
Yes, man, this is what I get every day, man. And we said, yo, it's time for this to come out. More people need to hear this. And so we can develop as a community, as individuals, because we're missing a lot of pieces. You mentioned stolen keys, man, but there's a lot that's been stolen away from us. But it's time to regain that.
Yes,
And appreciate your time today, brother.
yes, sir.
All right. Until next time, we're committed to give you about 10 of these every week. We're gonna be here 10 shows in a row, and we look forward to seeing you guys, man. If you please like and subscribe. I hated saying it, but it is the way how to spread the word. Please tag someone as well. Share this with a young man or a older man that you deem fit and needs a fresh word. All right, peace.